Good afternoon. We'd like to call our Alderwhite County work session meeting to order. First of all, I'll say, could we get a motion for the approval or amendment to the agenda?
Chairman Jefferson, I'd like to amend the agenda in two parts. One, that we move 5B ahead of 5A on the agenda. So discuss FY 2026 operating capital budget before battery energy storage systems. And also add the appointment of a member to the Personnel Committee.
Okay. Board members, any readiness? Motion? Madam?
Mr. Ely?
Yes.
Mr. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Akery?
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Jefferson?
Yes. Now we have the invocation by Supervisor Joe Akery.
And I've asked Don Robertson to lead us in a moment of prayer for the invocation this evening. Thank you, Don.
Good evening. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for this opportunity that you've allowed us to gather. We thank you for our board members and those citizens and our staff who are in this room, who are present today. And we thank you for all that you do for us, how you bless this county. Even in this season, you've allowed us to have some rain and some sunshine, and we are thankful for that. We ask that you would continue to bless our public safety officials as they care for us and provide service to our citizens. Provide safety to all of those who serve. We ask you to continue to bless this board as it deliberates, give them the wisdom, the understanding, and just a heart for the people that they might make the right decisions in all that they do. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll go to item 4, which is County Administrator's Report.
Yes, sir. Mr. Jefferson, the first item tonight is a request that we had received, I think earlier this week or late last week, for a resolution acknowledging and recognizing National Therapy Animal Day, which is actually today. So we would just ask that you all would adopt that resolution in recognition of that.
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution recognizing National Therapy Animal Day.
All right, and then readiness? Madam?
Mr. Ely?
Yes.
Mr. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Akery?
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Jefferson?
Yes. And then we move to item 5, unfinished old business. The budget, operating and capital budget. Mr. Robinson?
Yes, sir. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask Bill to come up. We're going to talk with you for a few minutes tonight about your fee schedule, the proposed fee schedule. That attachment is in your agenda packets. And what you'll notice with that is that the highlighted fees are identified. So Bill will run you through that, but we want to make sure you were at least aware of some of the adjustments that are being made with regard to fees.
Yes, thank you, Don. Good evening. What you have before you is the proposed fee schedule for the fiscal year 27. Again, as Don said, the changes are highlighted. We also provided you the 25 and 26 so you could see what we were charging during those time periods. So I'll just go over the ones that have changed. Animal Control has asked to add some new fees this year, and these have to do with some adoptions. The adoption of a senior cat, dog, $50. The adoption of a barn cat, $50. They're going to offer a 2-for-1 adoption for $100. And they had this other adoption fee because they may have roosters, chickens, horses, things like that. So they proposed $25 for that. Actually, the microchip fee, they've decreased that from $35 to $30. And they added a new fee called microchip during the reclaim of an animal for $10. Then if we move into emergency medical services, Gary has provided some fees. These fall in line with what's allowed by law. And this is for basic life support, 1.5 times the allowable rate as shown in the CMS ambulance fee schedule as amended. They're all, so advanced life support 1 and advanced life support 2, and specialty transport and loaded patient mileage. Those are all the same 1.5 times the allowable rate as shown by the CMS ambulance schedule as adopted.
Excuse me, Bill.
Yes, Tom.
If I could just note for the board, those were fees that you all adjusted last year because we had not really kept up with the industry standards as it relates to fees. So the language that's put in there now allows the fee to grow as adjustments are made over time. So we don't have to come back, even if it's mid-year, we wouldn't have to come back to you and amend or adjust the fee. It would automatically be adjusted to make sure that we're
Medicare
staying
fees
on
only
top of
change
those.
once a year.
Yeah,
October
but it doesn't
1st.
necessarily line up with your fiscal year, so.
Right, so October 1st every
Which
year
is-
it changes.
So we could do it in a more timely fashion.
Can you tell us what the current Medicare allowable rates times 1.5 are?
The rates that you currently have, I believe, well, I take that back. Did they change, Gary, or the rates
Okay.
that we have are current?
So, we'd be looking at $675 for BLS, $850 for ALS 1, $1160 for ALS 2, $1325 for specialty transport,
So it's the
and
same.
yeah.
That was just my question. Thank you.
Then GIS, we've removed some fees there. We no longer offer some of these services. So we do not provide custom services any longer. We don't do map printing. We do not do the 11 by 17 map printing, 24 by 36 or 36 by 48. We also do not print anything larger than 36 by 48. They did increase the local produced digital GIS data for $20 per shapefile. Remove the Virginia-based mapping, the high-resolution intermodal park, as well as the high-resolution intermodal park, that one as well. Those are removed. When we move into the inspections, this is a new fee. So after the fact permit fee, this $500 would come into place if a property owner was found to be doing work that required a permit that did not obtain one. Now, keep in mind, we're not out looking for violations. We are 100% complaint-based. So if the neighbor calls and says, my neighbor have a permit, and we find that they needed one and they don't, they would be hit with a $500 fee plus the permit fees. We've added accessory structures over 256 square feet, $50. We are now charging a resubmittal fee after the second review, $150, and we've increased the appeals fee to $250. And then Parks and Recreation, so Mike and I took a look at this. Parks and Rec fees have not been changed in several years. We did not want to hit folks with a large increase. We wanted to look at more of a gradual. So all the highlighted fees that you see are increased by $5. We'd initially said 10, we backed it down to 5, just to keep pace. And, some of the questions I asked him when it comes to the shelters that we rent out, those are utilized in the season. People are using those, so they are full. And then we increased the electricity fee as well by $5 on all of these. And then again, under planning and zoning, and after the fact permit fee, $500. That's been added. We have increased the fee, well, not increased, excuse me, we've decreased the commission and board exceptions, appeal, and miscellaneous approvals with a public hearing to $750. and we have instituted a reinspection fee of $125. Julie had contacted me under public utilities. We had a DMV stop fee in our fee schedule. By Virginia code, the utilities, we're not allowed to do that. That can only be through the treasurer's office. So that fee has been removed. Then if you look into the water rates, there's a proposal to go up to $15.50 per 1,000 gallons, and that's from 0 to 50,000 gallons. And then over 50,000 gallons is proposed to go to $8.25 per 1,000 gallons. Stormwater, we're actually recommending a reduction in the stormwater fee from $3.42 per month ERU to $3.25 per ERU, per month dash ERU. Under tourism, Judy and her team has kind of revamped the program, which through that, we are reducing the fee. So for the food tours, it's going from $75 to $49 per person, minimum 6 participants. We are increasing the booth fee for the spring vintage market from $75 to $125. And then if a vendor needs additional space, that goes from $50 to $100 for additional space. And same would apply for the fall vintage market. Restaurant week, the fee would be $150 for restaurants to participate and $100 for retail establishments to participate. Certified mail fees have increased to keep up with the USPS, $10.44. And then the distressed boot fee has increased by state code to $60. And the DMV stop fee is now at $25. So those are the proposed fee increases.
I guess we need a motion to approve this, or this?
No, we were
That's
rolling
big
this
part of
out
the budget.
tonight to see if there's any questions or any concerns with the fees. We've tried to keep these in alignment with either, regional or community standards and not create exorbitant fees. So as Bill noted, a couple of these were done incrementally. The water rate increased, the cost to the county increased, and so there's a small increase in that fee. So, but really just for any questions or any feedback tonight.
So of course, the fees for the animal shelter, at some point in time, it would be good to do a quick review of how our animal shelter operates and how donations are accepted and where they're used, et cetera. Because I know that's been kind of hard to follow over the last few years. I think it's gotten better, but people like to donate. I think it's good for them to see where their money goes, especially when they're looking at fees and stuff and wondering, we don't want to deter anybody from donating and participating and helping care for the animals.
We talked about that at length at the audit committee.
And if I may, Finance Department has been working with the animal shelter to track a spreadsheet to track what donations are coming in for the various things. Because there was some, I believe was some misunderstanding with the animal shelter on how they were using some of these funds. We've now corrected that.
Yeah, because I thought we talked about this, last year or year before last, and it was something about finances. So I'm hoping they worked in it or got it worked out.
Not too many years ago, when somebody donated, it was just going to the general fund, and it was getting lost in the shuffle, and that's not what we were trying to do.
Yeah, Robert and his team are working with them to keep that in order. Because we don't want to misappropriate what their wish was for those funds.
The item or the issue that the audit committee took up was that if someone wanted to donate, it's considered a governmental entity because it falls under the county. So it's not eligible many times for matching funds or many of the grants that are out there for this kind of work. And so we did for several months discuss it, Don, last year or the end of 2024 even, right when we first started the audit committee, about how we could help them perhaps be a nonprofit
Nonprofit, yeah,
and
exactly.
increase their donations through write-off eligibility and matching grants, et cetera, and did not come to a resolution on really how to help them. We ended it with, people can still donate to the county with a designation to the line item of the kennel or the animal shelter.
Might be worth picking that back up and see if we can take it across the finish line.
Perhaps, except that the reason that we didn't resolve it is because the county is unable to apply for nonprofit status in the name of the shelter, and the shelter's managed by the county, so.
There used to be some individuals that were kind of spearheading it all. They were the ones that coordinated, as you know, with some of the vets and stuff like that, and I don't know that they're still around.
Well, they still have a vital volunteer program. I think we all were invited to an event this Sunday, actually, as they're doing a video to try to increase adoptions of the pets and recognize our volunteers. And I got an email that said how many thousands of hours volunteers have donated, which is fantastic. And I know we couldn't do the work without the volunteers. I really do. I do wish, if Mr. Floyd has any ideas from other places he's been, I do wish there was a way to segment out, maybe it's a nonprofit that is like friends of the animal shelter or supporters or something, even if it's totally separate. I'm on the understanding the county cannot do that for them.
Yeah.
Is that right, Don?
Yes, yes. And, I don't know if there's still an opportunity for like the Humane Society or one of the other groups that's kind of affiliated to assist us in that regard. But yeah, that's something we can look into again.
Only question I had was about GIS fees. So I know in this budget, the department asked for an additional FTE for GIS, but yet we are not printing. I don't know if we're not printing maps because of demand or because we don't have the supply, i.e. staffing time, to do the printing. So it doesn't seem congruent to me that we would decrease fees because we're not going to print, but yet we need more people in GIS. So
I think the answer to that is all of our maps are now online, and they're available to the public at no cost as it is. And I don't think they have the demand. And that the position that's being requested is actually a split position between GIS and community development to do GIS work specific to the Open Gov program.
thank you.
Ms. Healy, nothing? Gordon?
All right,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, I did want to fairly quickly walk through a couple of things. This budget process has been ongoing, and we are hopefully getting you to a point where we can start to bring the process to a close within the next couple of weeks. So I just wanted to provide some brief information. Last week, we had a relatively robust conversation after a very long public hearing, and we asked you all to give us your feedback on what you wanted with regard to the options for funding public safety and for schools. So when we started this process, the proposed budget was roughly $117.8 million. Based on your feedback, based on the information that you've given us, the increases that we've included, the budget as a actual budget number now stands at $119.9 million. Now, if you do the math, that 119,957 minus the 117,786 is not going to give you 2,070,000. We've made some adjustments internal to the budget to whittle away at a few numbers, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But essentially, the gap that we're trying to close at this point is $2.1 million. So there are a couple of ways we could do that, that will, maybe hopefully generate some discussion tonight. The first option would be to rely wholly and solely on the real estate tax. That is challenging from a number of perspectives. But if you'll recall, we are currently at 77.5 cents for our real estate tax rate. The proposed budget that was submitted proposed a rate of 82 cents. Again, reminder, 1 cent equals roughly $700,000. With a $2.1 million gap, it's easy math, that's 3 cents. And so to cover where we are now budgetarily, it would be 85 cents. Your tax rate would go from 77.5 cents to 85 cents. Another option, based on conversations that we've had, would be to use some one-time money to address part of that $2.1 million gap. So again, not to be redundant, you know what the current tax rate is, but if we looked at using that $1.4 million, and again, that's the money that we were pulling back from the EDA as a result of not utilizing that money for the farmer's market at this point, then that's 2 cents. So that gets you back to about 83 cents. We can do that. As I've noted, that would not be my preferred method, but it's certainly doable. The question that we would have for you as the board is, where do you want to land as it relates to a tax rate? Because we can do all kinds of gymnastics in terms of trying to work ourselves into a rate only to come back to you and you say, that ain't it. So we need to know where you want to land, and then we can try our best to get there without doing any damage to services or anything that you all have held up as priorities for this budget.
So using the 1.4, that'll put you at what, as far as?
That would put us at 83 cents. Now, what that
Travis,
includes.
Is there a third option?
I'm sorry?
Is there a third option, or is it just one?
I'm just throwing out what we've discussed.
Okay, there's not another slide?
No,
at
not
all.
yet.
Okay.
So that includes all of the funding that you all have discussed relative to the additional 1.6 million for schools and the additional compensation for public safety. And I need to stress uniformed public safety employees, because even within those departments, the administrative staff would be treated just like my staff in terms of the
And that's
3% plus
And
$1,000.
that's also increasing your staff as well.
Correct. Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because there was an adjustment from 2.5% plus 1,000 to 3% plus 1,000. So yes, that does include that. Absolutely.
Would we consider option 3, which takes another 2 cents off the rate by using or by planning to use the money that we'll make from the Sycamore Cross site plan approval?
So you can certainly consider that. I don't recommend that for conversation or for purposes that I've already stated before. Here's my reluctance to roll that out to you as an option. The current option, option 2, puts you at a deficit of 2 cents when we start the process next year, because that's one-time money. So when you start budget conversations next year, you're already going to start out having to make up that 1.4 million. If you now add another 1.5 million, you're essentially adding over 4 cents based on current rates or current revenues. And that's a pretty hefty lift before you even consider anything additional for next year.
So notwithstanding the additional businesses and homes built and other money that comes in, how much did we yield from the reassessment 4 years ago? What kind of bump did we receive? I know you take the tax rate and you adjust it back to a zero-sum gain level, but I guess
Yeah,
I'm
I-
asking what the increase of the assessed value of the properties were.
I was trying to remember, Gerald, what the average increase was.
It increased about 35%, if I remember, residential
Well-
property.
What was the revenue neutral? Do you remember 61 cent or something like that?
We were at 85, it dropped to 69.
And then,
we
I think,
got
72, yeah.
Okay. Because I think that's the other point too, is what you want to know what the neutral is.
Yeah, but I mean, we're making some assumptions because they're just starting the process, and so,
Neighborhood day.
I mean, do I think we're gonna end up with a reassessment that shows values increasing? Absolutely, but,
Question be how much?
that's yeah, exactly.
And in your professional opinion, Mr. Gwaltney, I mean, should it be about equal to the increase that we saw in 2022? Are you expecting another 35% or 30% or
I'm not
you're not? What are you expecting?
lower. But I can't say how much. Overall, I mean, you can find homes in certain areas that's got hefty increases based on the sales, but that's not typical countywide.
That was the thing that was troubling last time. As easy as it is to look at the revenue neutral and where we landed on the tax rate, listen to some people based on sales next door or whatever, some of the increases on the houses were pretty staggering. Once you learned how they did it, you kind of understood. But those same people are like, I've been in my house this long and I plan on being in my house till I die. I'm not getting anything out of this. And the word heartbreaking kind of comes to mind because they were kind of just along for the ride. And at the end of the day, they tried to appeal it, but it didn't really help. And so some people got substantial tax increases, even with the neutral.
Right.
So what I keep thinking is even if the next one comes along, we did something similar, those same people are going to be hit harder on top of a tax increase the year before.
Do we need to really dwell on revenue neutral with the tax rate being, we already know right now, with the 1.4 million, we 2 cents in the hole. So,
I think that's what Ms. Roundtree was kind of talking about. You know, she and I kind of batted it back and forth just because it was, I guess, made for conversation. But you don't want to already anticipate that. And like she's saying, I mean, everybody's sitting here wondering how much are you going to keep in the next assessment to keep the county floating. And I guess when you start adding on this year, because you think we really are dragging a 1.5 cent with us from this budget year,
Pretty
if not
close,
more
yeah.
for FTEs.
Yeah.
So we've already kicked it down the road already. We're kind of kicking it again.
right,
And at some point in time, it's going to build up and you're going to be a 4 or 5 cent that you have no way around it.
yeah, exactly.
And probably some real issues like collective bargaining and things that you're going to have to deal with on top of being kicked down the road for 2 or 3 years. So I don't know. I mean, it is.
I see the solar, between the site plan approval of 1.5 million and then once the farm gets going, another 1 million for the next 20 years. I mean, I see that as somewhat recurring revenue.
It will be once it starts. The challenge is that we don't know when that will start because the recurring revenue won't start until it's actually up and operational. And then I think even with that, is that based on what's in place as of January 1st, or how does that work, Gerald? Is that, yeah.
Was that land rezoned?
It was, oh, well.
Yeah, it's,
Huh.
Well,
Was it rezoned, it was agricultural?
It's a different tax rate, yeah.
That's what now?
Yeah, a different tax rate for the-
Yeah.
Permit in 2024, and when it gets its conditional use permit and it actually starts breaking ground with construction, then at that point, it's reassessed at a commercial rate versus a
So it's,
agriculture.
But they're not there yet.
No,
so it's still at agriculture right now?
correct.
It's dead land right now?
It's still in site plan review
Yes,
process?
yes, it's, site, the phase 1 section is almost done, and phase 2 is under review right now.
So I understand the site plan agreement doesn't, the siting plan agreement doesn't kick in until after it's online or live, I get that. But again, to my argument, I do think that can't bring an issue without a resolution or a possible solution. And if we were willing to take into account the money that the solar farms will help us with and diversification of revenue and increase in revenue, then we could probably have a third budget option, which might be 81 cents if you counted on revenue from that project instead of 83. So then you'd have an option of 85, 83, and 81, which is better than what we have now.
I'm glad, I mean, it's good to have another option. The question would be, of course, nobody knows what the future holds, but if the future of small modular reactors becomes reality, it makes you wonder if, when, kind of like the housing market crashing, when would the solar projects just stop because the reactors are taking up, I mean, not to get on, that's kind of political, but point is, not so much what you're talking about, the $1 million, but some of these things may never be developed.
Well, I mean, even with small reactors, you know, some of what we hear is that we're probably still a decade away from those
That's my
even being
understanding.
viable.
They've jumped ahead on other technologies. we weren't ready
Yeah,
for.
I mean, but you know, just don't know.
Yeah, I got you.
I would like to, Mr. Rock, continue on with his option two. And because of the fact that what she was talking, Sycamore Crossing, that's not a sure thing, so to speak, as far as timing and intake of funds.
I think it'll be pretty closely aligned. I'm trying to get a timeline of when the site plan will be approved. I know Ms. Ring just said that it's in process for phase 2,
Summer, maybe, maybe.
which means we'll get the 1.5 this summer and kind of parallel to when the budget starts. It's one person's opinion, but that would be my preference, is to lower it to 81 cent.
Yeah, I'm less concerned that we're gonna get the 1.5 than I am what's gonna happen a year from now when you're having conversations about the budget.
So then between the solar farm coming online and the assessments, which we know won't be 35% increase in value, but it will be something, you take it down to a neutral rate, but then you have to add back on things to cover these commitments. I think it's just being conservative.
So one element of the discussion, I know, you know, looking at the different options here, and that was what we heard from individuals speaking last week or whatever that was, seems like a month ago. But anyway, when people got up and spoke about the reserve fund, there seems to be, not that I would agree with it, sitting in a seat, now as a citizen it might be different, but sitting in the seat, don't necessarily agree with cracking open a savings, if you will, a rainy day fund, whatever everybody likes to call it, that hasn't been added to in a number of years, cracking into it for something like, you know, making a budget work. But as I stated in the last one, you know, if that's what our citizens want to try, then we're kind of rolling the dice together. Either we make it or we break it. It's still, there are people that are like, why do you have money sitting there when you're going to raise my taxes? So I get it. We talked about the EDA money. That doesn't really sit in that fund, but it would go back to that fund because that's where it came out of. So the EDA fund does kind of embrace what some people were talking about, using reserve funds. But as we all know, and I think just for the record, you know, you have to take into account where Isabel wasn't even hardly Category 1 when it hit us. Category 1 storm, we're going to be on our own paying for stuff for a while. Another storm could be a political storm. You get collective bargaining that hits right after we do this budget. That might be the only thing that keeps our county floating until we can have another budget session, you know, come up with another budget. And nobody really knows what kind of money that's talking. It's all over the place. So I just say that out loud because we heard what people said as far as the savings account. On the same token, sitting in these seats, you do look at all those different pieces and worry about taking the risk of really diving into that fund.
So I understand we have close to 30 million, might be 29 or 30.
Probably
Not a section.
less than that at this point. We're thinking probably mid-20s by now.
And so what the,
And that's taking out
financial,
capital,
I'm
right?
sorry?
That's taking out capital items right this year, using that to take out capital out of it.
So current year, yes, it's about 4 million was in the CIP, I'm sorry, capital budget, I believe. I think it was 4 million transfer.
And we're not proposing, just looking ahead to the next topic, to take any fund balance. Oh, no, you're proposing to take 2.382 out of the fund balance. So what the financial planners suggested was they would not like, and the bond rating agencies would not like to see our unassigned funds go under 20 million. So we have 17.7 per policy. They said we have to keep 20. So, you know, by my
They
estimation.
suggested, like you said.
Yeah, they did. I mean, but they said ultimately it's up to us to run the county.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I guess my point, just doing quick math though, is let's just say for argument's sake, we're at 25 million. So we're midway there and we're taking 2.382 out for capital. And then, the EDA money cancels out pretty much 2 cents. The solar money, even if we got it, we're not sure that it's really recurring. But to cover the additional gap to get us down to 81 cents or something lower, there's still a couple million to play with between the 25 million and the 2 million that we're taking out of the unassigned fund. There's still 3 million in there that's leeway.
I can agree with taking the 1.4 million, but I do not support, taking more money out of that unassigned fund balance, or rainy day fund, whatever. Because like you say, we never know whether a hurricane hit this area. We had one sometime back, Isabel,
Yeah.
and that impacted the whole county. I don't know how much money we spent there, but it was a heck of a lot, I think.
It was.
Yeah, and at the same time, that money is used to buy fire trucks one time, that's one-time expenses, ambulances.
Well, and another thing, the other thing is, if we're gonna build a school here shortly, you're gonna end up with things that the bond may not cover, you didn't think about, whatever. That'll allow for some flexible spending, if you will. We were very fortunate with Hardy. We had to get really creative on the furniture. Nobody even thought about that. The kind of money went, I don't remember. It was a lot of money for furniture for that place alone. Of course, they didn't make the newspaper, but that's okay. Point is, there's gonna be other expenses. So I guess we have option one that you showed, we have option two. What is the harm with having the budget option three? Because we're not making a decision right now.
No, not at this point.
So with what Ms. Roundtree has proposed, my point is, you see the three options. Our citizens will see the three options. If you never know, they may surprise you. If we hear nothing, then we're going to have to make the decision. That's what we're here for. But if they come out and say, I really like option three, it'd be a shame not to have it out there for people to digest. So is it possible to have it as an option for consideration to allow us and our constituents to digest what options we're looking at?
Sure. I mean, you kind of know what that option is. It's add another 1.5 million of one-time money. As you noted, it gets you down to 81 cents, and that sounds good tonight. But a year from now,
Oh, no doubt.
prayerfully, I'm standing in front
Oh,
of
yeah.
you,
Oh,
but
yeah.
we hopefully have a solution.
No doubt, but if somebody were to come up with that idea because they didn't hear you talking about it, it's been vetted, and either at the end of our session, we either decided to go with it or we didn't.
Well, like Mr. Baker just stated, you know, before they came out, and they've been pushing hard for that. They've been pushing hard to use some of that one-time money. And we all have, I know I have, and I know other people have too on this board, and other people have tried to, you know, let them know, you really have to understand, once that money goes out, it's gone, and from that point on, we have to get that money from somewhere else. But when they look at it, of course, it's hard for them to look at, man, look at that money just sitting there, you know? And I know, I can understand that. I felt the same way. But after seeing it, and I understand it better, it does make a difference. But in saying that, like you just said, let's put the third option down. And if they come in here and say, that's what we want, well,
We considered it, and either we
Yeah.
did or we didn't do it.
yeah.
I mean, I think that we need to capture the discussion, though.
So I guess I'm trying to get a sense. Again, we can put up, quite frankly, give me 5 minutes, I can type it up and put it on the screen. The public hearing has already occurred, so I guess I'm trying to get a sense of, are you talking about as it relates to the tax rate, because it's already been advertised at 86.
Yeah.
So you can reduce that, can't go up, and we wouldn't suggest that you go up. But it almost sounds like you're trying to get feedback, and I'm just trying to get a
Well, we're
sense
getting
of what's the
feedback. I don't know about
mechanism
y'all,
for-
but I can't
Yeah,
get.
I'm getting feedback. I sure
Somebody's
will.
gonna think bad if I say I couldn't get my grass cut, because it was a nice conversation. Because it really was a good conversation. But my point is, people are paying attention, which is good. I'm glad they are. I don't know, it's just my.
Well, I'm
two
sure
cents.
it'll be advertised, whether it's in the print media or on Facebook or, I mean, you could even put the budget options out on our, social media pages or update this PowerPoint and have it in the materials that any citizen can look at. But I do think we should model a third option.
I don't see a real harm.
Like I said, it'll take all of 5 minutes to print out another sheet that gives a
Think so?
third option.
A third option. And
I mean, it's not, at least it's there. Then it's up to us to decide.
I am
We really
curious.
want to go for it.
I am curious that if, it's been what, almost 4 years since we did the reassessment, if we had just held steady at 85 cent, what kind of money, we're gonna say we saved ourselves, citizens, by not, I know it's difficult because it slides a little bit because we moved the adjustment, but do you follow what I'm getting at?
Yeah, it's hard to, I guess, speculate on what you would have saved, because if you had the additional funding, you might have made other decisions about.
But, I mean, you could have
Capital or something
wasted it, you
else.
could have done
Yeah.
good stuff or
Now,
whatever.
If the strategy had been, we're gonna take X amount of that money and squirrel it away for.
But we kind of did, but people don't like that either, so.
Yeah, well, exactly.
That's kind of what we did, but anyway. Actually, I reflected on that when we first came to the board. It seemed, I say first came to the board, the latest group, or one of the later groups were working on it. It seemed like there was a lot of, we call them pots of money, buckets of money, things, everything from grants to et cetera. That what most government does is they go find the money and they look to see if there's a grant or there's some money sitting here that was left over from a project. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, that's the way our county was doing it. And it seemed like to me what we did is went to all the buckets, dumped them all out, used them where we could, put them in one big pile, which was the fund balance, which everybody wants to spend now. And it's more transparent, obviously. If we'd done the old government style, which I think a lot of other places probably still do that, you wouldn't be seeing a 20-some million dollar fund balance. You wouldn't see it. It'd be money here, money there, I think. And that's not where our county runs. We made it as lean as possible, and this is what you reap when you sow those seeds. So anyway, I think third option would be good.
Mr. Gardner, you got anything to say?
I'd say we go with an option 3, just to model it and show the public we're at least trying to break it down. Earlier on, when you asked my opinion, how much would I agree to? And I said about 3.5 cents. And I'd like to see if we can get it down to 3.5.
Tell me what you want to take out, we can do it. And I'm not saying that facetiously.
I understand.
I'm saying that we've added a lot over the last few weeks. And so at some point, the analogy I use with staff is we've been shopping for the last month. We're at the cash register now. And so either we got to put some stuff back or we got to figure out how we're going to pay for it.
Well, we got a pretty big Christmas list, so now it's time to start peeling back a little bit and at least demonstrate to the public that we really do care. We need to make the best effort possible and try to pare it back to what appears to be reasonable.
Yeah, and I mean, anybody who
And I'd
doesn't
like to,
think that this
you know,
board
go for the
cares is
whole
just
Molly.
not paying attention. Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah, but
it's a little bit too much.
our budget last year created some of the problems we having today. Remember the things that we added on at the very end? We went from,
Yeah, there's certainly some things, there were some positions that were added that we're now picking up the second half of, and so, yeah, And not, they weren't bad decisions, it was
Oh,
just
good
decisions
decisions.
that
For the
that
hospital.
we were trying to be
And for Rushmere.
frugal
between-
last year, but at some point, as Mr. Akers said, it catches up with you.
So those positions, I think it's a good opportunity to bring that up. Those positions were Rushmere and Rushmere Emergency Services, we'll
Right.
call it, and the deputies for the
For the
hospital.
hospital, yeah.
And how many deputies was that, two?
Those two,
In January.
and then like at least two positions, I think, at Rushmere, was it three? Three. So, I mean, that was you know, there were the right decisions to make,
Right.
but yeah, but now we're picking up the full cost of those.
And then this year, we have to add 3 for Carrollton.
6.
Well, it's 6
Well,
part-time,
we're
right?
doing 3 part-time, 3 full-time,
Right.
so correct. The other part that impacted us from a staffing perspective was that, if you recall, we had some SROs, the grants ran out. And so in this coming year, we'll have to pick up the full cost of those. Now, we're making efforts to apply and get funding to cover that, but that won't happen between now and July 1st, if at all. So that's an additional cost from prior decisions that were made. Again, they were the right decisions, but the timing of it is now impacting us.
That's in keeping with our priorities, public safety, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and that's one of the problems with grants. You know, once you apply for a grant, you have to sustain it. So in this case, it's personnel. So now you're locked into either letting those people go or pay out of our budget. And do we have the revenues? No. So that's where we have to increase the taxes. So I would caution to decide wisely when you get a grant, the type of grant that you have, is that money that you're going to be able to use just for that one time, or are you locked into sustaining that, which is sometimes what we're seeing is not really sustainable at this point in time.
Mr. Garner, you have just articulated part of my concern about using one-time money. Because in essence, we are giving ourselves a grant
Right.
for 1 year, but at the end of that year, the grant runs out, and now we got to figure out how do we sustain that commitment.
Right.
So I'm 110% in agreement.
Well,
with you.
maybe there's no increases in pay next year. I mean, maybe it's a 3% plus 1,000 and market adjustment for uniform personnel and school people.
So that is an option, but full transparency, one of the things that was in the recommended budget was a pay-in-class study for all of our staff. Unless you tell me otherwise, I am probably going to move forward with that study current year to get that underway. Not to do the study, but to start the process. Because we have spent the last few weeks addressing a third of our staff. And I've got 2/3 of the staff that are looking at me and emailing you all about some of the same things that we've been talking about for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And so we need to be at least looking at how we create, not necessarily equity, but yes, equity across the organization.
So the pay study, is there a point in time where they can give you an idea of worst-case scenario? When I say that, I would assume, anyway, I just look at other people that have already done it and the financial commitment that they made, and they put money aside of their operating budget to prepare for the fact that the following year was going to be a big bump. So they already had one bump the year before the study was even done, and then they kind of bridged it with their new budget. But I don't know how they came up with an estimate on how much to start saving, if you will, or start budgeting for, because you're going to do a study, you got to be, I mean, I thought it was interesting, just because I didn't remember this, when someone in the school said, you guys wanted this study, now it's time to pay, or something like that. I don't ever remember, in fact, I remember saying, they're doing a pay study, how are we paying for this? Because once you crack that open, you can't put it back in its shell. And it can do damage if you can't afford to take care of people. We already know we're never going to be able to pay people what they're worth, at least in this county. So you just put it out in the front and make it hurt that much worse. But I never remember us having that conversation as a board that encouraged the schools. I didn't remember, I mean, do y'all remember that?
It's not
May have-
something I would have paid attention to because the school board's elected to do their job and we took away categorical funding, so
That's a good point.
to proliferate a pay study is not a line of detail that I would have thought I needed to review. You know what I mean? I mean,
Until,
it's probably
until,
under
until
50.
people want $7 million.
It was probably under $50,000 for the study, right? I
Right.
mean, it's not a line item that I would have reviewed.
What you're saying is that you would thought the school board would have asked that question. If we're going to do this, how do we pay for it?
Not my job, really. It's their
Point
job.
taken.
That's
Point
why they're
taken.
elected.
You made a valid point, say our position is to appropriate funding, but I say appropriate funding that we can afford as a county.
Yeah.
And, you know, we get some proposals that we can't afford, and we have to do, like I said last week. If a tax increase is needed, that's where we need to go. But try to keep it to a minimum if we can. But the real estate tax is the most stable form of revenue that this county has.
What has been in the
We heard that
past.
from the best commissioner of revenue in the state of Virginia,
Yeah.
Mr. Walden.
It's the most stable. It's also 93% on the backs of our citizens and only 7% attributable to commercial and industrial revenue.
And that's
And-
not stable.
When I looked at it online, just to compare to York County, because goodness knows, we get compared to York County quite a bit when it comes to school performance and spend, et cetera. So I just thought, oh, what the heck, I'll look it up and see what the revenue generation percentage on the back of the citizens of York County is. It's 53%. Now, 40% of their area in York County is federally owned. So I'll throw that caveat in. You know that probably better than anybody. But only 53% of the revenue in York County for their total budget comes from residential and personal property taxes.
So, and one of the reasons that is the commercial diversity also, of course,
Right.
residential. What people don't realize, the Tab area of York County has the population density of that of Fairfax County. That's how dense Tab is. You let us propose anything. Look, we get it hard enough in DSDs in Carrollton. But you bring the density, that of Fairfax County, to one of our DSDs, you know what you get? Well, first of all, you get that type of lifestyle, but you do get the Walmarts and you get all the different restaurants and you get whatever. But what I've heard, and y'all probably have too, we don't want to be Fairfax and we don't want to be Tab. So be careful what you compare yourselves to, right?
I'm just looking for a more stable, more diversified revenue base.
It's no way that housing can stabilize this county. They keep building houses. You need more schools, more teachers, more fire department, more rescue, more everything, infrastructure, water, sewer, everything that they need, trash pickup, they want. And it's no way they can, I mean, you're not gonna pay for it at 77 cents.
And
Not for 93% of it is coming from them.
that's why I've been hesitant on some of the subdivisions that have been proposed.
Well, I mean, until we get some more commercial industry in here that will help pay for this, this county can't sustain that. Ain't no way.
Then you wonder where you're going to put it, because most people don't want it in their backyard.
The commercial.
And that's it.
I've heard that
We
too.
want to compare ourselves with Suffolk, Hampton, Nipper News. Drive down Route 10 and just, right by the, what's the store?
Suffolk.
What's the store, the new store there?
Publix.
Public.
Oh, yeah.
Look at all the commercial buildings there. That's revenue coming in.
Oh, yeah.
We in White County don't want nothing. We don't want to grow. But yet still, we want fire to come out.
Yeah.
As soon as the fire happens, we want a fire truck there.
Yeah.
As soon as I fall down and hurt my leg, I want an ambulance there.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's what I said. They
And we want the best
They want the
schools.
services. They want
Yeah.
the services.
We want the best schools in the state.
If you get the
How do
best
we get there
services,
if we don't have
somebody's
the
got to
commercial
pay.
buildings to help us out?
But somebody's got to pay. Somewhere
That's
down the
right.
line.
Us as a taxpayer have to pay.
Yeah.
We have to pay. I mean, they paid for me when I went to school. There's time for us to pay for the other young people
Oh,
to
yeah.
go to school.
Yeah, I've been paying for it for a long time.
So the
I
good
have
news
to.
is that we're not making a decision tonight. We have a public hearing in 2 weeks about the tax rates. But I think what at least three of us directed you to do was come up with a third option at 83 cents and what that would look like from pulling from unassigned
81.
fund.
81.
I'm sorry, 81 cents.
You already at 83.
Right. I know Mr. Supervisor Jefferson is not in favor of that. I think actually, maybe 4 of us said we'd like to at least look at option 3.
I'm not in
I didn't
favor
say
of
I
it, but I
wasn't
think
in
it needs to
favor
be
of
on.
option 3. Okay, you can bring option 3 on, and we just evaluate option 2 and 3.
I mean,
Okay.
my
And
constituents.
we all agree.
Yeah. they
So
got-
we will bring that back, and, I mean, like I said, easy enough to do, and,
Does that mean that when the dust clears for the most part, unless something comes up, we're gonna have 3 options, and we're gonna look at the 3 options, vet which option, vote on which one we're going with, and done?
Hope so.
I mean, I just making sure.
yeah, so my only request is,
We don't need a 4th option.
if there is a
11th
fourth or
hour.
fifth option out there, tell us tonight, because
No, I think 3.
what we're trying to avoid is the last minute, let's make a
I
U-turn.
always want 3 bids. I always
Okay.
take the middle bid.
That'll work.
The lowest bid, you ain't getting nothing. The highest bid, but look at it.
So you already said you want to go with option 2, right?
Well, I'm just saying, I don't know. It depends on what it is.
All right.
We're good.
Okay.
So just as a reminder, obviously, we're here tonight. You have a work session next week, which is, we'll talk about, we'll bring back the third option and a little bit more information for you. But outside of that,
And when you bring that back, give us some idea of what you're looking at taking out to get that third option.
well, the third option is adding revenue. It's not taking
One-time
anything out.
funds.
Well,
I took
mean,
$500,000 out to get
Yeah.
you to where we are
yeah,
tonight.
That's right.
So,
Okay.
yeah, it's just a matter of the revenue at this point.
And you've got a small summary for each one of these so that we're all kind of on the same sheet of music.
For the options?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. All right, thank you.
Are you bringing up capital next? Are we talking about, because it's in the report?
No, I just put that in there just so you, if anybody had any questions about
So
what
did
we
you
talked
take
about
out
last
the
week.
weapons detection like we said?
It's taken out, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's literally the attachment from last week,
How much was that? I'm not looking at-
216,000.
Okay.
And I talked to schools about that. Quite frankly, they said that was a good decision,
Yeah.
because if they weren't going to get the full 7 million, they weren't going to have the staffing
Right.
to do that, which I think Ms. Roundtree pointed out last week.
Yeah.
So that was a good call.
All right.
All right?
Here's your question. No, you want questions? I don't think you have enough.
I think
A little late on that.
all right, I guess we'll move on to
Excuse me.
battery energy storage system.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors. My name is Amy Ring. I'm the county's Community Development Director. Tonight, you all asked for us to continue.
Not behaving.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I introduce myself and he starts laughing. So tonight is a continued discussion with regard to the proposed battery energy storage system ordinance. As you recall, you all had a public hearing at your last meeting on April the 16th, at which point you all decided that you wanted to discuss the proposed ordinance some more. On March 24th, Planning Commission actually voted to recommend approval of the draft ordinance you had a public hearing on. That draft ordinance was based on continuous discussions from June 2025 up until February. The draft was developed also with feedback from fire safety, the building official, and Dominion Energy. And we used other local ordinances as models, like Middlesex, Surrey, and Sussex counties, for example, and those are just a few. It was more like 6 or 7 of them, in order to kind of formulate our own draft ordinance. So after the public hearing, you all did send me some additional review comments as well as one set of citizen comments. And there was a common theme of concerns in those comments that I wanted to address in my presentation tonight. Some of the common concerns included the applicability. What would these regulations apply to, and what terms should we use? Who would have the review and final approval authority for these systems? There were public safety concerns, environmental impact concerns, noise. traffic and road potential damage, as well as potential impacts to adjacent property owners like noise, visual impacts, and safety. So in our draft ordinance, we defined battery energy storage systems, or BESS, as a major utility service because it was of a regional nature. It was the principal use of the property. This ordinance would not apply to accessory BESS systems because they are considered minor utility services in that they serve the principal use on that site. For example, the solar panels that are on the top of the schools, they serve the school. They provide, the main purpose of those is to serve the school and not provide energy to the grid and sell it back to a service provider like Dominion Energy. They are required to follow the utility scale solar energy generation facility criteria that we currently have in our ordinance, in addition to new requirements. This includes decommissioning agreements, siting requirements, buffering and screening, pre- and post-construction traffic management studies, to name a few examples. Also, they do require conditional use permit in every zoning district because they are a major utility. However, they are not allowed in the DSDs. You must be wholly located within that 2-mile radius of any high voltage transmission lines, and they are also limited to they fall under that 2% cap for prime and soils of statewide importance. The defined terms that we used in our draft ordinance are only the ones used in the ordinance. It doesn't include other items such as front of the meter, behind the meter, et cetera, because we don't address them in our ordinance. The review and approval authority concerns, the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors are already granted exclusive review and approval authority for all conditional use permits, and that's established in Section 1-1017 of the zoning ordinance. You also have review authority for any kind of major revisions to conditional use permits, as well as we have the ability to retain third-party review and oversight resources, which is found in Section 7-2006B, and assigns that financial responsibility to the applicant. Environmental impacts such as floodplain and wetland restrictions, stormwater management, and hazardous material handling regulations are all applicable to these types of land uses, and they are found in multiple places already in our existing ordinance. There were also numerous public safety concerns raised, and I just wanted to outline several ways that the draft ordinance does address public safety concerns. And as I stated earlier, this was developed in coordination with our fire EMS staff, as well as the fire safety coordinator for Dominion Energy. These facilities shall be constructed, maintained, and operated in accordance with national industry standards and regulations, including the most current adopted edition of the National Electrical Code, the International Fire Code, and the National Fire Protection Association. These batteries will be National Fire Protection Association compliant, and the strictest requirement out of all these will be the ones that apply. They shall also include what's called a battery management system, which is to monitor individual battery modules and includes monitoring for temperatures, container temperature and humidity, off-gassing, combustible gas, fire, ground fault and DC surges, and door access. It shall also have the ability to shut down and issue an alarm in response to an unsafe condition. Our ordinance also does require that battery energy storage system facilities be developed with technical experts as well as first responders to make sure that we've incorporated appropriate best management practices, and we also require an emergency response plan. Now, each of these actually have 11 to 13 different criteria underneath each of those requirements that address things like making sure that occupancy in the rooms and areas containing battery energy storage systems are limited to personnel that operate these systems, or that there's adequate access, ingress, and egress for first responders. There's adequate facility signage, accessible safety data sheets, system-specific emergency response plans, drainage plans for runoff, that there's water available on the sites for use by these first responders. And as far as response plans, Gary did give me some information sheets that they follow, and I might look to him to kind of explain them further if you all have any specific questions, but I put them at each of your seats so that you can see what it is that he's using to develop these emergency response plans. So to address noise concerns, we established a maximum decibel level of 50 dBA at the property line. And this comes out of not only looking at other local ordinances, but also our own personal local experience with the noise that neighbors have experienced with solar facilities. And we feel like 50 dBA might be lower than some local ordinances, but we feel that it's good to be conservative when it comes to imposing noise limits at the property line. We are also requiring a pre-construction noise study. It's required at the time of application, as well as a post-construction noise study of existing conditions after the first 3 months of operation. And at that time, if it's discovered that they're exceeding that 50 dBA, then they will be required to mitigate and then retest to make sure that they're meeting that noise limit. For traffic and road concerns, road conditions and maintenance responsibilities fall to VDOT, and heavy load and weight restrictions are controlled by both VDOT and DMV. So a lot of these super loads that come through with the building of, say, Cavalier, those permits were issued by the DMV in Richmond, and they're supposed to notify the VDOT and localities that they're coming through. However, that's not always the case. So we are actually requiring a construction traffic management plan, and we're putting one in place with Sycamore Cross, where the applicant and VDOT are required to communicate that with the locality so that we can communicate it with our sheriff and fire and EMS to make sure that they're aware, and make sure there's no additional conflicts with, say, school buses or rush hour traffic or that kind of thing. They are also required to conduct the same pre- and post-construction inspections and repair process as the solar facilities. Before construction starts, the applicant's required to go out with VDOT and do a pre-construction inspection to see what the current baseline road conditions are. And they re-inspect it after construction, and they are required to repair any degradation that may have happened along the roads. We saw it up on Jones Drive, where they actually went in and repaved the road because of all the wear and tear that happened because of the Cavalier construction. For adjacent property impacts that may happen as a result of battery energy storage system development, before the application is submitted, the draft ordinance does require a pre-application and neighborhood meeting. We also require a minimum setback between the battery energy units themselves and the fence, the security fence that surrounds them, and then at least another 300 feet between that fence and the adjacent property. All equipment shall be set back at least 500 feet from any existing dwelling at the time of conditional use permit approval. The board does have the ability to reduce that setback, however, no closer than 100 feet from public roads and property lines if the specific site conditions, the nature of the project, and the permit conditions adequately address public safety concerns. Pre- and post-construction noise studies, again, they also are required to demonstrate that the facilities are in compliance with that noise limit, and they also must meet solar facility landscaping and screening requirements. And that is all I have for the summary of changes and how the proposed ordinance does attempt to address some of the concerns that I was seeing in those comments that I received. I'd be happy to answer any questions, should you have any during your discussion.
Well, they're putting the, I guess, what do y'all call it, Saratoga, the next,
Sycamore Cross.
Sycamore Cross.
Where are they putting Sycamore Cross?
yeah, Sycamore, that's right down on the swamp.
Yes. Sycamore, Mill Swamp, Rattlesnake.
Because that property borders that all the way across.
Mhm.
How far do they have to stay off of that solar as well as best if they put a facility in there?
So as of July 1, if Sycamore wanted to put a battery energy facility on their property, it would have to be on a piece of property they already have approved for solar. And it's allowed by right according to the new legislation as an accessory use. However, we can't impose any additional requirements other than what we already have on the books as of June 30th. So right now, if y'all adopted it, say, next month, it's now approved, then they would have to meet that 250, or excuse me, the 350 setback
Setback from that swamp.
from the adjacent property
Okay,
owners,
okay.
yes.
Okay. But
Right
that's-
now,
that
they
is
are
the
not
way-
allowed, they're currently not allowed to put anything in floodplains or wetland areas, or if they do, they have to go through the appropriate permitting process.
And that's what I was comfortable with, was the 350 feet from an adjacent property, understanding that they can't
Yeah,
put a BESS outside of an already approved solar farm. And I think that's what we're trying to do tonight, is just very methodically go through every point. Appreciate the summary, but I think it would really help us if you pulled up the existing proposed, well, not the existing, because there's not an existing ordinance for it, but the proposed ordinance from the planning commission, if you can pull that up on the
Yep,
screen.
sure, I can
And we
do that.
just work through it, because both, I know I heard from Supervisor Acre and Supervisor Ely that they've looked through all the amendments, but I know that David and I have spent lots of time on Zoom meetings and in discussions with many industry experts. I mean, I met on a Zoom meeting with some folks from AES. I separately met twice with Mr. Tucker, which you guys know him. He comes all the time and speaks to us. He's a state expert in this area. So I know that in every section, we're going to have things that we want to talk about. But regarding the setback and the wetlands, for example, Mr. Gardner, and I know we're not to that point because we should work through the whole entire document, but Mr. Gardner, Supervisor Gardner, you proposed not having a BESS within a quarter of a mile, I think,
Right.
of wetlands, which would mean that you wouldn't have any BESS at all in the county of Isle of Wight, which probably your point.
Be terrible.
But I was comfortable with the 350 feet from adjacent property because it exceeds the, RPA setbacks and everything else,
On the
and it's what's
23rd.
reasonable, but, for example, that's one of Mr. Gardner's amendments.
And with that said, in case there was an emergency fire, a runaway fire, what would they do? Either A, let it burn, which, that would release a lot of toxic elements,
Yeah.
or secondly, if they use water, and we're close to a wetland, then where is it all gonna drain? And I added some water containment, language in there to be able to keep this water separated and away from sensitive streams and waterways. And when you think about the revenues that are generated from oystering and crabbing and other fish, and then you have a lot of folks in the county moved here just to hunt and fish. And you release some toxic materials into the environment, and then that can affect deer and turkey, birds.
And that, all that waterway goes to the Currituck Sound. Goes to Chowan, Rowan, Currituck.
Currituck,
to
and
the
then,
ocean.
and then Chesapeake Bay watershed as
Well,
well.
it don't go to Chesapeake, not that one doesn't.
So if you wanted to, we could just adopt Supervisor Gardner's edit to not allow BESS within a quarter of a mile of any
Any wetland.
wetlands, and then we'd save ourselves about 2 hours tonight, because none could ever be built, essentially.
See, well, and solar fields and battery energy storage are two different animals. You can't use solar requirements for battery energy storage systems because they're quite different in nature and the dangers they possess. So you have to write a strict ordinance for the contingencies that could evolve under an accident.
So
You
if
have to be prepared.
If you have an ordinance that's relatively strict,
Yes.
once June 1st comes and goes, are you able to moderate it if you need to, or you can't change it at all?
So as I understand it, that you can't apply any new regulations after June 30th. And So you could modify it, but if you were to try and make them stricter, for example.
Well, I'm just saying, let's just go with the quarter mile from, right? And to your point, we're done. We laugh a little bit, but that's pretty strenuous. It allows you some opportunity if later on, we said a little bit much or whatever, but it sounds like to me that's not the case. They don't care if you're making it more moderate or not, you can't change it, right?
Yeah, it's any new, as I understand it, any new regulations after that deadline, you could not apply to any by right battery energy storage. So anything that went on Sycamore Cross or Cavalier, you couldn't apply any new regulations that weren't already
Yeah,
there.
he's- I
But
think
any
it-
new outside of an approved solar farm, you could. but-
I think Mr. Carter's got a great point. I mean,
I would like to ask this question. Are we trying to write an ordinance for strict compliance, or are we trying to write an ordinance to deter?
not to deter,
Huh?
no.
I'm trying to write
I
one
mean,
for
just
strict
Say,
compliance.
Not to deter.
Well, we need to look at what we're writing, and, I mean, if you could put some things in place, if you put some requirements in place where you know there's a possibility that a facility might be in that area, and we already said, no, we're not gonna have this, no, it can't be, this distance from the roadway or whatever.
We're
That
str-
depends on the location,
We're struggling with some of the unknowns.
right?
And the reason why we're struggling with unknowns is the very reason why they've put this into a by right, because they want to shove it down our throat. They don't want to answer the what ifs and the what might happens, so they went to the state, and now it's by right. So this is like our last opportunity to try to take care of our citizens and the environment in our county the best we can under a timeline. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. They know that it's bad, or they wouldn't have shoved it down our throat and made it by right. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, well,
In any case,
Very
if we
good
can start at
report.
the top of the document, I think that's how
Right.
Mr. Gardner and I have
So
organized our thoughts.
this is the draft document that went to public hearing.
Right.
And just to be clear, there is a water containment plan, as well as stormwater management regulations that would apply to this type of land use. And there's a very thorough emergency management response plan criteria for these types of land uses as well. So I just want to point that out, and Gary's here in case you all would like to discuss specific emergency response strategies for these types of facilities. And, what his approach is, we'd be more than happy to go through
Is,
them.
he said, well, one thing he did bring up, suggest, if one catches on fire, you have to douse the other ones to keep them cool down, not to set them off. You don't put any water on the one that's burning.
Gary, the expert.
And saying that, like he said, how much water is that gonna take? And where are they gonna get that water from?
So I think that Amy and I met today and went over our proposed, or the county's proposed, ordinance. And I asked her to make sure that it was in there that the owner, operator, whatever, provides an adequate water supply.
So what is the adequate water supply?
You don't know. I mean, it could be a constant flow of water for days. It
Yeah.
could be for a couple days. So,
That's a lot of
like I
water.
said, last week, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago, our challenges here in the county with these are gonna be staffing, because the volunteers would have to leave and go to their primary jobs. And if you have extended operating periods, you need someone there to monitor it. I think I provided a training class that's happening in Petersburg on May 13th. We plan to send people up there to just get a little more ahead of this and what we need to do. But everything that we're basing our response plan on, I talked to Chief Dale Scott from Windsor today. I talked to Jason Stallings from Smithfield today, and the other chiefs, and everybody's on the same page. That, if one of these pods catches on fire, we're gonna treat this just like we do a transformer that's on a pole on the side of the road. Firemen are taught we don't mess with electricity. We're going to back off until the subject matter experts get there do what they have to do to de-energize, to shut everything off and all that. And then we're gonna do what they recommend to do. Again, it's no different than if an incident happened today, with something involving electricity. We're gonna rely on the SMEs to help us mitigate whatever's going on.
So how long would it take to get a subject matter expert on site? Are
I
there
think-
any in the county?
I think that is part of the ordinance, that they have to have someone available. I don't know if it's in there that they have to be on site within 30 minutes or an hour or something like that. I don't know what that is. I know, at least they used to, when they were building the solar farms and stuff like that, they had like a resident expert or resident manager or whatever on site. So they were pretty close. When we had the brush fire out on Mill Swamp the other day, and we needed to get a hold of Dominion when it was threatening the substation, Dominion had somebody there within like an hour. Once we called them, they had somebody there within an hour. When we called Dominion now for that transformer that's on fire on a light pole, they give us 30 to 60 minute ETA. Generally is what they give us, and then they'll show up within 30 to 60 minutes. So we're sitting there for 30 to 60 minutes, making sure it's not gonna go somewhere else, you know? Not if it catches the field on fire or whatever because the line has dropped down, then we'll go away from the electrical and take care of the field that might be on fire or the brush that might be on fire, but we're not messing with the electricity.
And rightly so, because we don't want to have an incident with, casualties trying to control a battery energy storage system. One other question. So I guess most of these clauses here are incorporated by reference purely, so when that happens, they're not visually immediately available. You have to go look them up. So, in other words, would it be a good idea just to add those references in addition to having a glossary to list all your incorporated by references instead of just as you go along, you kind of.
So all those resources would definitely be in the emergency response plan, and the contacts to the subject matter experts and stuff like that, that would be updated. We do that now with the solar farms. We update the emergency contact information because they change people all the time too. So we keep up on that. So those resources, material safety data sheets and those kind of things, they would all be in that emergency response plan.
Okay.
Right.
So let's just say for this particular scenario, and I wrote about it when I was running for office. So there's been a fire. It's essentially burned itself out. You have all this hazardous material within that battery energy storage compound. Along comes a Isabel-sized storm, and you're trying to contain all this hazardous material. This storm blows and carries off this material by water, by wind. So how do you contain it then?
I don't know that there's an answer to that when you throw in Mother Nature and.
Act of God?
Correct. So I don't know if there's an answer to that other than putting in, mitigation, like a containment ponds and stuff like that to try to capture the runoff, and now you've isolated your runoff. I don't want this to be taken as I'm in support or against battery storage systems.
We're not against
But the
it.
incidents that I have reviewed with the EPA, the whole purpose, what they say though is the whole purpose of letting it burn off is it makes whatever there might be in the lithium and all that, it makes those products inert. So there is no, again, EPA, they can look it up. There is no, a day, 2 days after the event, they're doing testing of air, they're doing testing of soil, and there hasn't been. There are incidents where they've done, in their mitigation efforts, they breach the pod or breach the battery or whatever, and yes, they do have that as an issue. But, again, the literature suggests that if it burns, you let it burns off all of the contaminants, and by putting water on the unburning pods, you've got clean water runoff. So you're not spreading the contaminants, if there should be some, from the pod. Again, everything I'm saying is based on literature and research that I've done in preparation for this discussion. Obviously, I've never been on one. There's not really a whole lot of people to call and ask that has experienced one. But again, EPA and those alphabet agencies have done a lot of research and stuff on them. So that's what I'm basing comments on.
So, Mr. Gardner, your amendments start with 4F, 4H, 4AV, and the proposed ordinance from the Planning Commission starts with 5.1. So how do those two relate? Are you proposing amendments prior to this Article 5?
Let's see, which one are you talking about up here?
Well, in your amendment document, you proposed some changes to 4.F, 4.H, and
Right.
and then deleting 4.AV. But if we're starting with 5.1, I just was asking for the reference point.
Let me pull that up and see what we're talking about, because that's the ordinance, that's not our change document. Is-
Correct. I'm looking at the ordinance on the screen and then
Yeah,
the amendment document on my screen.
Okay.
And it's listed as 4.F, 4.H, and deleting 4.AV. I'm struggling with understanding which part of the proposed ordinance that is if we're starting with review at 5.1.
Okay, let me
In any
go-
case, while you find that, my first just discussion, starting with 5.1, suggests to add a scoping statement under the definitions section that just, again, I know we are following our existing rules, but I do think it bears repeating that I would like to see BESS banned outside of previously approved solar facilities and banned within the DSDs. So you stated a little earlier that, I mean, I guess, Ms. Ring, if you're saying that that's already covered and there won't be any BESS outside of existing solar facilities or inside the DSDs, then we don't need to restate it, but I don't think our existing ordinance says that.
So the proposed ordinance just says that they have to follow the solar facility requirements, which includes not being located in the DSDs. There's no statement that says they're banned outside of existing solar facilities. So if that's a requirement, we would have to add it in here that they would only be allowed within existing approved solar energy facilities.
So that's my first point, is that I know BESS can be considered for large, industrial sites and businesses as a way of storing energy, et cetera, but I'm not really interested in having the battery energy storage outside of existing solar properties. So that's my first point of consideration.
I can jump, I got my comments here, and you're talking about 4F. Essentially, it references paragraph 4F, and the term must was used is more passive than shall, and I'm just recommending substituting the must for shall.
Right, but the proposed ordinance starts with 5.1, so what does?
Understand, I just kind of popped, it wasn't in sequence. It was just a comment of a typo or a misuse of a term.
So it doesn't apply to 4.F at all?
It does apply to 4F.
So what does
Comes
4,
before.
what does 4F say? Where is 4F? I can't find 4F is my point, because we start with 5.1.
No, 5.1 and 4. Let's see.
It may have been included in the solar section, so when we adopt the board ordinance, the final ordinance, we have to include the whole section
Right.
to send to Municode, so it may have been.
So we jumped right down, 4F, so it's probably 5, paragraph 4. So under 5,000, 5-5003M, we have 1M, utility service major, and we go through E, and then 3, 4.
So you're talking about the utility service ordinance?
So
The
ma-
entire section, you
The
said?
section I had to do the whole thing in your draft ordinance. There should be a red line version that is part of your previous agenda, but there was also the whole ordinance that you would adopt, and the whole ordinance includes the whole section, because that's how they require us to do it, to send a Municode.
String, do you think, where he says, should Y dot be V dot, do you think that's a typo that
That's
should
a
be corrected?
typo, yeah.
So you could agree to that?
Oh, yeah.
And do you have a problem with must changing to shall as a verbiage change?
No,
Okay.
that's fine.
All right, so then that takes us back again to the scoping statement that I proposed that would ban BESS outside of existing solar, approved solar.
Yes. So one other thing, and I was trying to find a place for this, and I see it talks about setbacks, talks about schools, and it talks about historical properties, and that's not the point. My point would be, is there any merit, anything worth putting in this ordinance that it needs to be a certain distance away from a emergency shelter? Because we use some of our schools for sheltering, et cetera, so on. So as emergencies, my point is, you have a storm or whatever, and you have an issue, or you need a shelter. You don't need to compromise a shelter. I don't know if it would be worth it, but I don't think it's a bad idea to at least address the appropriate distance away from a place that would serve as a shelter. Do you agree, Chief? Sorry to catch you off guard. I was talking about,
Setbacks.
and I hope this is.
No, it
the right
says
place.
500 feet from an existing dwelling. So right now, as it's proposed, it would be 500 feet from any,
But as a shelter,
Building.
I mean, the 500 feet, you could, the point would be, I think, the 500 feet, if it were blowing and there was gas, off gas and whatever, you could shelter in place, 500 feet would be good. But when you have a shelter where people have to come and go to get to the shelter and leave the shelter, and you may have to transport people from the shelter, et cetera, is 500 feet appropriate for a shelter? And I think we'd be okay, because I think it would be covered by not having outside the DSD and all that stuff.
Right.
However,
That's.
however.
Yeah, so my personal opinion would be 500 feet from a shelter where you're going to bring people for safety, just because if there's a lot of equipment moving around and all that stuff, it just wouldn't be safe to be 500 feet
So,
from a shelter.
so 500 feet would not be, that'd be too close.
I would think it would be.
the
too
shelters are all in the DSDs, aren't they?
close. I don't know, Will just
Smithfield's
left
not
to
a
go get
DSD.
something to drink. He'll be right
Smithfield's
back.
not.
Hardy's not, you mean?
Party is,
Hardy's not.
Oh, I guess Smithfield High School, middle school or
Smithfield
not.
and one-
But if we're
High
banning
school.
it to only existing solar fields, then
it's okay.
there
I
aren't
mean, I
existing.
just thought it might be an opportunity to mention our sheltering.
How
because
far
the
would you like
one-
it from a shelter? We could
That's-
fit
He's
it
the
in.
expert. I just,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it would be my opinion that 500 feet from an existing shelter wouldn't seem good, a good place for it.
Should we say 1,000? Is it like? our
From
final?
an existing approved shelter?
I mean, the only reason why, we
couple
laughed a little bit when he said
football
quarter of a mile, but
I'm thinking, yeah.
Right.
More like
But
that.
if you did something like Mr. Gardner was talking about, because he was talking about the environment, et cetera, so on, it's very much similar, because people are going to need to get to the shelter, and they're going to need to be able to, so quarter mile from a shelter?
So I think the other thing that needs to be considered is if the event was at one of these that's close to the shelter, we would utilize other shelters
doubt.
versus that shelter. So,
Assuming your shelters aren't full, because everybody from Virginia Beach is stuck in them. But anyway, yeah, I just,
Go with a quarter of a mile from a shelter.
Quarter mile from any shelters,
Yeah,
and that way down the road when we're all going, it'll be there.
Love it.
yeah. Just go that quarter mile, we got it
So
done.
the next addition to scope would be that the ordinance applies the utility scale best and includes from the meter, commercial and industrial behind the meter, and exclude residential behind the meter and net metering. You think the existing ordinance has all of that included?
So we did not define those terms. However, the way we differentiate is we use major versus minor utility. So if you're a minor utility, you're only serving that particular principal use on that particular site. If you're major, you're regional and you're distributing power to other places and across the region. So we don't use those terms anywhere else in the ordinance, which is why they're not included in definitions. So we can certainly look at it to see if, are you trying to get to like maybe a place where you can differentiate between, those types of uses and whether this applies to them or not?
Yeah. So how does utility scale best apply to major and minor as you have it defined?
So utility scale, if you
Would be
came in
major.
and you say, I'm going to start a battery energy storage facility on this piece of property, it's not associated with anything else, it's not on an existing solar farm, I'm like, you're a regional utility, you're a major utility, you have to get a conditional use permit. That's how we currently do it. If you're a battery energy storage facility that is, say, in Shirley T. Holland, and you're supplying and storing energy for a business that is in Shirley T. Holland, then I would consider that a minor utility.
Okay. You want to go back to your 4 points?
Let's see, the 4A, the Roman numeral 5, the financial analyst report, the version I have down here is a little bit more robust. It provides more detail to the county for economic purposes and financial.
I think those were taken from, that section was taken from a county in Washington. We were looking up
Yes.
those requirements online. And it would have to be refined so that it fit better with our local ordinance, which, I know you just sent that to me this afternoon, so I
Right.
haven't had time to
Understand.
kind of really see how it would fit in here. But if you would like to require a fiscal impact analysis.
Of course, they have to be tailored
Specifically,
to meet
right.
the needs of Isle of Wight.
Right. We can, if y'all would like to see something like that, we can add it in.
I like the idea of a fiscal analysis. I
They call
think
for one.
I think this report is really a lot, like a real estate value impact study, risks and uncertainties, method of projected financial and employment
Very
impacts.
comprehensive, yeah.
It's very comprehensive. So I would like Ms. Ring's read on that, but I don't have a problem with adding a physical analysis report.
It could be tailored accordingly. It's just part of that contract specialist in me that kind of
Uh-huh,
goes over,
I
over
gotcha.
the top maybe a little bit.
So we already agreed to your top two, then we covered scope. So then you have 4 GIC, abandonment or decommissioning, adding removal requirements.
So the decommissioning requirements we currently have require that all equipment be removed by the developer or
In ret-
property owner.
In returning the
Right.
land back to natural conditions.
Does your current ordinance state how many days they have to do that?
With 6 months.
So Mr. Gardner says 150 calendar days, so it's 5 months.
I think 6 months is adequate. From administering demolition projects all the time, I think 6 months is reasonable.
Okay.
Okay. So then, that was your red comments, Mr. Gardner, your red lines. Then I was proposing to replace after 5.7. I guess you could go to 5.7.
And that one's yours, 5.8.
I don't think I'm in the right spot. Do you?
Isle of Wight County Governance and Oversight.
Oh, you're on your version.
Mm-hmm.
Say, this
I'm
is
saying
the
there's
draft.
like a 5.8, which would be a proposed section for governance and oversight, which basically gives the Board of Supervisors the only authority granting conditional use permits. Is that
That
the case?
is already established in Article 1 of the zoning ordinance. It's redundant.
And approving minor and major structure modifications to the best and property?
So you would have major modification approval authority for so it's increasing the size, the intensity. If they're just shifting one location of a container around slightly, that would be something that would be considered minor that I could approve.
And then it gets into review by the sheriff's office, community, emergency services, and county development.
So they are currently on the reviewing list for any new applications that we get, site plans. It goes to Steve Henson and Gary's department, and he looks at it, he reviews the emergency response plan, he gives me comments. They meet with the applicants to determine training needs and to conduct training. Sheriff's office already covers public safety in that area, and they're called as needed. Like I said, roads and road damage are the purview strictly of VDOT and DMV.
So then, county development,
County development, currently, we make sure that the conditions of approval associated with the conditional use permit are reflected in the approved site plans. And then if they deviate from that, then we are the responsible party for enforcing any kind of penalties or cease work or those kinds of actions.
and then I was proposing, so I guess section 5.8 is mostly redundant.
So on your section, can you refresh me again?
5.8,
5.8.
like adding a section after .7. 5.8 entitled Isle of Wight County Governance and Oversight, and you're saying that we pretty much already do that.
It's redundant, yes.
Then 5.9, I had proposed sequencing orders, so prerequisites placed on the developer.
Yes, again, that's already established. We have a review process that they have to go through. First, you get your conditional use permit, then you get your site plan approval, you get your land disturbing permit, you get any kind of permits you need from VDOT for construction entrances, you get all your stormwater management BMP easements recorded and pay all your fees, and then you start construction and you get your inspections and you bond, your decommissioning bond, your landscaping bond, and road bonds, and then, so, I mean, those oversights are already provided for, and they apply across the board. Battery energy systems are not anything special, that they need their own set of oversight criteria.
So I was suggesting an emergency response plan prior to the review by the planning commission or the board, noise study results.
So currently, that's required with the submission of their site plan. So if you all want to look at that specifically, we could include it as an application requirement in the earlier part of the ordinance, along with the fiscal impact analysis.
I think that would be a good thing to put in there up
Okay.
front, so they would know going into it, that's exactly what you got to do. Not trying to deter, but just let them know, this is what we're asking for. I think that'd be a good thing to start off.
So again, that's under section 5. Proposed section 5.9 prerequisites placed on the developer. Ms. Ring, I'm not saying that every single thing under here has to be included, but I think there's some appetite to have some prerequisites added.
So a lot of these things, I know were reflected in the citizen comments, same citizen comments I got. And a lot of these things are already either in the planning commission draft or in our existing ordinance. So, I mean, if there are specific things that are not included that you all would like to see, I mean,
Well,
like financial.
again, for example, emergency response plan, noise study results.
It's required currently, but it's at it's at submission of the site plan, whereas you all would like to move it to,
Correct.
I think
the
it'd be good.
application, right?
Yeah, right up front.
So it's just moving the location of it.
Because a lot of times this get kind of, what, I didn't know that.
Well, I've got a quick question. So Amy, in the ordinance that's proposed, and I think this was slide 4 on your presentation, but it talks about the 2% cap. How are these facilities looked at as it relates to that versus solar? Is it the same 2%?
Yes.
Or do they get their own set aside?
No, it's the same.
Okay.
They fall under that same umbrella.
Especially because we're gonna amend our scope that says that you can't have a battery energy storage outside of already approved solar projects.
I hear that. Not sure how that's gonna, well, there may be a legal question in terms of how the state views quote-unquote ban or attempt to ban.
We can try.
That's a big
Mr. Gardner,
discussion
do you
for-
wanna, I know you have some red lines
Detailed
under,
discussion for
Under the emergency plan.
you had some red lines under 5.9,
Yes,
requires a little research.
5.9D, I think.
yeah, runoff management plan.
Yes.
Applicant, well, let's see. Runoff management plan to include that, required for surface water discharge to protect the water environment for projects shall include specifically assess pollution control method in the environmental impact assessment plan by the developer and submit it to the county for review and approval to manage risks to groundwater and surface water. Runoff generated by fire water is not considered standard runoff. It shall be specifically contained or redirected to prevent hazardous chemicals from entering streams or wetlands. And following that, the applicant shall certify that non-PFAS fire suppressant foam shall not be, I should say, shall be employed.
There a prohibition already?
Non-P,
No, they
It should not,
actually,
you know, shall
um,
not be employed
and I'll
to
ask
the extent they are commonly available.
Gary to jog his memory, but Dominion Energy was telling us that they use foam more than water now for fire suppression.
So foam seems to be rather efficient, but yet it contains
It makes your
PFAS.
water go further. It makes, you use less water because a certain percentage of what you're throwing is actually a foam solution and it absorbs the heat better.
Homes with PFAS, can they still use that?
I don't,
It says non-PFAS.
Right.
PFAS,
yeah,
fire
that's
suppression.
the standard
foams.
now is.
try to
foam
encourage
does not-
non-PFAS, so
that-
that's what
right.
you use anyway.
That's correct. All the AFFF gold and all of that stuff that was contaminating all the water sources and all that has been taken out and you can't use them anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that's already covered under
Okay.
other regulations.
And some of these things are obviously redundant in different sections.
Yeah.
How about the groundwater level?
Groundwater levels, we're, Atlantic's Plain County, surface, water could go, aquifer, all 350, 400, 500 feet, and groundwater, below the surface could be up to, or no less, about 2 feet or so.
I was gonna
And
say,
so-
most of the county has a groundwater table, and I'm not saying that this is a bad thing if you want to prohibit them. Most of the county has, what, they're within 18 inches, the water table, groundwater,
How much?
18 inches? 2 feet?
Maybe 10 years, 15, 20 years ago, but I don't know about now.
But yeah, so
It's-
the
it's-
water table is
Yeah.
Right.
higher than maybe if you were to
But
drill,
it kind of depends on where you're at, too.
yeah.
In
You
the
drill an
county.
irrigation well, you can go 20, 25 feet. But if you're
Well-
drilling a 400-foot potable water well,
Well, a shallow well now is considered 35, 40 feet. Yeah,
And you would find that out in the country more
yeah.
than you would in, say, a
Deep
development
well, I
service
mean,
district.
if you,
So it's just more
If you tore-
added protection.
Franklin, deep well, 365, and if you toward Suffolk, it's 450, 475.
Groundwater levels, I'm just reading this, groundwater levels should be at a depth of 400 feet. So you're not saying, I don't know what you're trying to say here.
That's artesian.
400 feet is,
The only way you could get to that if it went into a well that was already dug. Yeah, it's the only way you could get to that 400
Right.
feet. Was just got too much to go through to get there. Shallow well now could get to that,
Mhm.
maybe. But that's why shallow wells are not real good things, especially around farms now, because of the chemicals that farmers are using. It eventually gets there, sooner or later, shallow well.
I just don't know that it's feasible. I don't know that anybody's, are you talking about digging a well 400 feet?
No, no, runoff from a fire that contains hazardous metals and other material sinking into groundwater.
That would be
Right,
shallow.
but if groundwater is a lot shallower than that, I mean, you've already said that you want to limit runoff to contained areas.
If that's going to be included into the ordinance.
Don't the ground have its own filtration system? The water don't, I mean, I got an artesian well,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But, I mean, shallow wells, they have seen, well, chemicals eventually will get into them and they're 30, 35 feet deep. And it can get there eventually. I'm not saying, right off, but eventually it can. Artesian, the only way to get there is you just dump it in the well.
Right.
But he was saying at 400 feet, though, that's
Yeah,
that's
that's-
artesian.
That's artesian,
Yeah.
yeah. Because most Isle of Wight, like I say, unless you go towards Suffolk, it's around 300 to 365. If you go towards Suffolk, then it jumps 475, and then you're getting into salt water too.
Again, I just am struggling to find what you're suggesting with this when you said groundwater levels. You're not talking about wells, you're talking about a depth of 400 feet. We've already established that groundwater and surface water is 18
Yeah.
inches to 2 feet, so
Yeah,
I'm just trying to find the delineation between
You do
what you're
have
trying to
springs.
say and,
running 18 inches, 2 foot springs underneath the ground. Eventually that will go to a shallow well, so. But not at 400 feet, no.
okay, so.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna leave that one alone, maybe. How about liquid hazardous materials stored in containment area?
Liquid hazardous materials shall be stored in a containment area that, in case of leaks, is capable of containing 110% of the largest volume stored in that containment. It's just a safety procedure that this hazardous material is going to get into the environment.
Okay,
and I can take a look at that to make sure it's not duplicative with state requirements.
thank you.
And again, if it's a state requirement, again, might be a little over redundant.
So section E has to do with restarting after partial or full shutdown, requiring root cause analysis to be done prior to restart. And I think somewhere in here you have, Mr. Gardner, a stand down of 30 days. So Amy, your thoughts on that?
Hold on, I'm trying to find this page.
I think it was in there for 30 days.
Sorry?
I think it was in there for 30 days, stand there.
But this section has to do with the root cause analysis. I threw in that because I had read that too.
I guess when you provide or conduct the root cause analysis, I guess what is the goal?
Not to have it happen again.
Right. I would think I mean, to me, I mean, I think that would be more of an internal exercise.
And the root cause is also, if there are other similar best systems out there that use exactly the same parts, that it could be retraced back to those other battery energy storage systems and identify that part, remove it, since there was a documented failure of that said component.
It's an internal review of the company owning the BESS. It's not an internal to the county review. I'm not talking about a county root cause analysis, I'm talking about the company
Right.
doing it.
I mean, I guess if you were to have a fire, I'm just thinking of another large incident that we had over at IWIP where we had the state fire marshal came in and conducted an investigation as to what happened, and the property owner was required to provide an explanation of what happened and an analysis. I mean, I would assume that similar type of process would happen here as well. This is the first time I've ever seen a root cause analysis be required and sent to the county.
Well, like similar to a FAA investigation, you know, when there's a crash and they identify a rotor fan that
Here we go.
failed.
Here's my emergency management.
Hey, guys. Good evening. I think you're talking about two separate things here. I think what Mr. Garner is proposing is a root cause analysis is to determine what physically went wrong at the facility, part one. But I think the other part that Ms. Roundtree is talking about is what the response actually looked like and what went well and what didn't go well, and then what needs to be shared between the two for best practice. That would be what we would call an after-action report or an after-action review.
Does that make sense?
And what we're asking for is both of those are called out specifically in the ordinance as required, Ms. Ring.
Okay, we can add that if you would like. You want that as part of your emergency response plan?
That would fall better under there, yeah.
Yeah, because we do have emergency procedures to be followed in case of fire, explosion, release of liquids or vapors, damage to critical moving parts, or other potentially dangerous conditions, and response considerations and strategies for those same things, procedures for dealing with battery energy storage system equipment damaged in a fire or other emergency event, including maintaining contact information for personnel, or other procedures as determined necessary by the county to provide for the safety of occupants and neighboring properties. However, we don't have an after-action
Or an
report
RCA.
required.
Or an RCA, right. So we're asking for that, both of those to be added to that section.
Okay,
Let's see. All
And
material-
submitted before they restart.
okay, we can add that.
And then all material modifications to BESS installations which require site plan review made after issuance of required building permits shall require approval by site plan review authority. So essentially, if they're making modifications, it goes back to y'all and make sure the modifications are appropriate and safe.
So you're talking about after an emergency?
No, this is a action that, well, in an emergency and or before, if there's a modification to during construction or during operation.
Yes, they are required to do that either through the zoning ordinance or our building code. If they make modification in any kind of electrical, structural types of changes, that does require building permit and review.
Okay.
Okay, then suggested section 5.10 is just entitled restrictions, so give you a minute to get there, but restricting battery containers by physical dimensions for weight and passage on roads. You're saying that all of that is duplicative because it's already required, no wider than 8 feet, no taller than 9 feet,
Well,
no
it's-
heavier than 60
It's not
tons.
duplicative, we don't have any local control over it. It's DMV and VDOT.
And
They
do-
are the ones that issue the permits.
So do these requirements match what permit would be issued?
So I don't know what DMV and VDOT's review process is for permits. I know that if you have a super load delivery, They're the ones that have to approve the permit for the overweight vehicles and delivery, as well as the route that you take. The localities have no control over it.
No,
We've tried.
You said, you call VDOT and you tell them what you want to move, how much it weighs, what road, and they'll tell you the corridor that you gotta go down. and
So we
when-
can't-
And when you can go.
So we can't specify any more
No,
strict than that?
no.
Okay.
VDOT got complete control of that.
One of the things in the past that we've done with deliveries that are being made when they're not supposed to be is that the driver is supposed to have their permit and
Oh.
route plan on them.
Yep,
And there have been incidences where they have not, and you can stop
Well,
them at that point. But
that's when they can get a ticket. And the company also get a ticket.
I was proposing all noise, soil, and water testing be performed as pre-construction and post-operational start. Is that already?
that's in the draft, yes.
All right, so setbacks, we already talked about, oh, no. Setbacks is in a later section that I do want to talk about. I want to talk, make sure we talk about noise and setbacks and change of ownership, just as a highlight, but the next proposed section has to do with failed batteries, cells, modules, and containers, and not allowing them to be stored on the best site facility, after 30 days, just the requirement that it shall be removed within 30 calendar days. And that other facilities, batteries, cells, modules, and containers will not be stored on site. I don't want to house other people's materials. And that replacement batteries, cells, modules aren't on site any more than 14 days prior to installation.
So anything that is failed or replacement, they're not allowed to landfill it on site anyway. We consider them trash and debris, and they'll get a notice of violation letter, and they're supposed to fix it within 14 days.
So the 30-day requirement is,
More lenient.
30-day requirement is probably unneeded, but how about equipment or parts for other facilities or replacement parts?
So for these types of facilities and with any other type of business, you're not supposed to be providing storage for anybody that's not associated with the business that's on that property. That includes shipping containers, it includes outdoor motor vehicle storage, it includes supplies. If you're renting out space to somebody else or letting them use it, you can't, according to our ordinance.
So you're saying that these things are already addressed?
Yes.
Okay. Section 5.11 would be financial assurance and penalty provisions, so it's adding a line of, or letter of credit, and then some fines and draws on that letter of credit when there are issues. Just your thoughts?
So we have a decommissioning agreement that we require prior to approving the final site plan. As far as a performance agreement with a performance bond, which is what this sounds like, we do not currently require those for private sites that are not installing public infrastructure that's going to be accepted. I'm not sure with this one whether this is a Virginia code thing. If we're allowed to, that might be a discussion for Bobby.
Okay.
I've
well,
just seen examples of that in other best ordinances, and I thought it's a great, and in fact, David Tucker even recommended some sort of a surety bond to make sure that, well, that the property is removed and restored to its natural character and natural state.
Well,
We
you
need
have
money.
that. You have a surety bond, right, for the decommissioning, is what you're
Correct.
saying. This is a letter of credit, not to the amount that he suggested, but to some amount to cover some draws in case there are fines or issues.
Right, so whereas I guess this is a bond that we keep on file, that in case there's ever a violation, we can draw our fines directly from this bond. Whereas right now, if somebody's in violation, then we charge them with a fine that they then pay, so.
Right. So if it's legal to do so, I'd like Mr. Jones to review it.
Okay. Yes.
So with regard to noise studies, then, it adds to section 3 III. It talks about who's going to perform the noise study and asks that they be performed by certified technicians using calibrated ISO test instrumentation.
Right, so that it would have to be, yes, it would have to be a certified professional noise study.
I think the way it's listed now, it says it has to be an engineer.
Yes, in our current ordinance, it says engineer.
But a certified technician using calibrated ISO test instrumentation should be good enough.
Yes, so we can add that to the draft.
I know I said in here, 4-season data, post-operational 4-season data. That would seem to me that it would take an entire year of measuring noise in decibels before you could even start, right? So I'm not sure that I still like that section. Performed during clear weather days, et cetera. There's a lot of different noise requirements that we were looking at. So if you could review that, again, I don't know if it needs to be as strict as it's written here, but I'd like to at least make the change of who it's performed by.
Sure. Do that.
And then as measured from the property line of any adjoining parcels, so it says where it'll be, that's section IX, from the property line. And that it won't exceed noise above baseline measured noise. 5C is a replacement of the setback section because I really liked the ones that we had before the planning commission changed them. I think the planning commission changed it to 50 feet behind the fence, and I'd like to put it back at 100. And then keep the 250 foot from roads and public lines, 50 feet from an existing dwelling, and 1/4 mile from any shelter. And that's not written in there, but I think we added it tonight. But I wanted to see it back to the 100 feet inside the fence instead of the 50. So that would be an edit.
Because some fences are within 20 foot of the road. So if you go 50 foot, they ain't but 70 foot off the road.
Well, the fence would be at, the current ordinance says 50 feet from any equipment, or the equipment has to be 50 feet from the fence line, but all facility structures, to include fences, have to be at least 300 feet. That's how the ordinance is supposed to work. So so the fence is considered part of the facility. So all the facility structures, to include fences and roads, have to be 300 feet from the roadway, and then or the property line, and then the containers themselves or any kind of generators or storage areas have to be another 50 feet back from that.
So you're saying it would be 100, 300, 500, 1/4 mile?
So it would be the facility itself would have to be 300 feet. And that facility, when I say facility, that includes the fence.
Right.
It has to be 300 feet from any
So my
property
amendment,
line or road.
yeah, my amendment, I have 100, 250, 500, and then we added the 1/4 mile from a shelter, but
Right.
you're saying it would be 100, 300, 500, and then the 1/4
So you're
mile.
saying if they're storing storage to build something, it has to be how far off the road?
So 300 from the road. Well,
I could show you something 25 foot off the road.
350 from, this is for battery energy storage.
Oh.
Solar has less right now, unless you were to change it.
About 10 foot.
Yeah. So you're saying that you would like 100, the structures themselves would be 100 feet from the fence, and then the fence has to be 250.
Well, this says 250, but I thought you just said it had to be 300.
Yeah, and of course, we're looking at y'all's
Yeah.
changes,
Yeah.
not the draft ordinance. So the draft ordinance actually says, let's find it again. "50-foot setback from the security fence with an additional 300-foot setback from all public roads and property lines." And then if you have a house, all equipment shall be set back at least 500 feet from any existing dwelling.
So,
So you're changing it back to the 100-foot between the equipment and the fence, and then another 250 between the
Right.
fence,
right,
And then 500.
and then 500.
Right.
And then a quarter mile for the emergency shelter.
right.
Yep. Yeah.
The next section has to do with an emergency response plan and notifications of alarm, notification, alert, and alarm. Do you think we already addressed this, or should this be considered?
So this is, I mean, I talked to Gary briefly about this because we do require notification and alerts as part of the emergency response plan in the current ordinance. And I said a question might come up on what the county's procedure is for providing alerts if there are toxic fumes or a fire in the area. And he just confirmed that the current process is through the IW alerts and, if needed, door-to-door notification as well. So we do have a process in place for notifications. And the battery management system is also required to provide alerts for any unsafe conditions as well.
So does our current structure follow this outline of notification, alert, and alarm? Or it's just,
It's a different way
Alert.
of saying the same thing, I think. I think ours goes into a lot more detail.
yeah, that'd be good. The next question has to do with change of ownership notifications. So, Ms. Ring, I think I understand from Mr. Jones that it's the current requirement for utility scale solar that they notify us within 30 days of change of ownership. And I'm not certain if I heard if that's being complied with.
So we do find out, they usually tell us in an email, say, hey, I'm the new owner, or I'm the new manager for this particular solar site, so.
Within 30 days as required?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say pretty quickly, yes, usually before it happens, because they want to catch up on what all is still needed.
So under this, amendment as proposed, it would address, prior to transfer of the property, new owner should submit an updated decommissioning agreement. So it'd make it a little more upfront instead of an email, hey, I'm the new owner.
So the decommissioning agreement applies to whoever the successive owner is. That's outlined and already contained in our decommissioning agreements.
But if we're saying that they have to have like a performance surety bond and this, that, and the other, it seems like a meeting before the actual change of ownership takes place would be needed so that they understand the expectations. Or else I think we're setting ourselves up for failure because they're gonna say, I bought it, I don't really know what I bought or what I was supposed to do.
We can add that in there if you want. I can discuss it with Bobby, just to make sure it's not duplicative or conflicting with somewhere else anyway.
Okay. Proposed section 5.13 appurtenant structures.
So, yes, this is already required in our ordinance.
Okay. Hazardous air emissions protocols.
Yes, that's already included in the draft ordinance as well.
Takes us to Mr. Gardner's comments on a commissioning plan.
Commissioning plan. Commission plan outlines the process of testing, verifying that all components of an industrial scale energy facility are installed correctly and operating as intended before the system is connected to the grid. Commissioning plan outlines the process of testing and verifying that all components of the industrial scale energy facility are installed correctly and operating as intended before the system is connected to the grid. And then we have a bunch of little subsections there of requirements.
Right, yes, I was looking at this, and some of these things are already required kind of elsewhere in the ordinance, like inspection procedures, electrical plans, electrical permits. We don't issue COs for solar farms, but we issue what we're calling certificates of completion, which does a lot of these
Okay.
things. So. And some of these things would be included in your emergency response plan as well.
Okay.
Luckily, that brings us to the end of our document.
That's it. That took longer than the budget.
Mm-hmm.
For clarification, you want me to ask Bobby about taking penalties out of bonds? That was one.
Performance penalties out of bonds, out of surety bonds. And I'm sorry, I
know
didn't make
you
a
have-
note. I think there was one other thing that we
Yes,
referenced
so
we
the
would ask him.
decommissioning plan and change of ownership and making sure that what Mr. Garner had written in here was already covered or needed to be enhanced.
And any conflicts between what they want versus the current codes, we'll look at those too.
So the county attorney will get the opportunity to review the entire
Yes.
document. And your goal is to maybe input all the changes and bring it back when?
So I could probably bring it back to you at your May meeting, your May 21st meeting.
Because we have to vote on it that night. If we want it in place before June 30th,
Yes.
our May meeting is the 21st. And then at the next meeting, we would have to, well, actually, don't we have to advertise for a public hearing? So anyway, I don't know that we have enough time
Get back to the
between.
county attorney and he advertise it within the time frame.
Right.
Then we can vote on it after it's advertised.
So the ads for the 21st board meeting did go out, but, I mean, I could bring it back and show you all the final changes and make sure I've incorporated any final tweaks. And then you could advertise for the June 18th meeting?
I think so.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. Even if we couldn't pass it at the next meeting.
No.
Can you edit the notice? No, that's too expensive and probably unnecessary. So we have to vote on it June 18th, yeah.
Yes, that would be your
One to
last
18th.
date.
June the 18th and June the 4th. Work session is June 4th.
Well, 18th was when you reasonably
action.
take action.
Yeah.
So a matter that's advertised as a matter of a public hearing, sorry, I said matter twice, but I thought there was something that said that you can't take action on a matter that you have a public hearing on that night. You have to wait at least 7 days or something.
That's just the budget.
That's just the budget. Perfect. That's good to know.
Okay?
And then after July 1st, anything that's discussed in closed session or added to an agenda as an amendment can't be voted on in that current session?
Correct. And I don't know about the whole, it's a matter of, if the closed meeting item was already on the agenda, you could take action.
But
you
if it was
couldn't
not-
add something after that.
Yeah,
and then-
can't come out of a closed meeting, add it to the agenda and vote that night
Exactly.
after July 1st.
Right.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Ms. Amy. I think now we have the opportunity to get a motion to appoint Mr. Joel Akery to the Personnel Committee.
So moved.
All right, Madam?
Mr. Ely?
Yes.
Mr. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Akery?
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Jefferson?
Yes. And we also need to appoint Mrs. Rogers as the clerk of the Board of Supervisors.
Oh,
Make the motion to appoint.
Ms. Rogers?
Mr. Ely?
Yes.
Mr. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Akery?
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Jefferson?
Yes. Are there any other concerns?
Nope.
Hearing none? Meeting is adjourned.